All right, so that kid seriously did not know what the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow was. I'm thinking Indian. But some like 90s Chinese with all of the like MSG with us would be pretty good. I don't know at what age they prescribe colonoscopies. I thought that was a dude thing.
No, that's a woman thing too.
I'm gonna need to take my shoes off, dude. It's gonna smell.
You need an Excedrin and a whiskey.
All right.
All right.
Trains?
Trains.
Trains. Welcome to Off the Rails with
Rowdy.
and Bethan. And for those of you who cannot see the video stream, Tom. Tom is our naked mannequin wearing, this week, tinsel, a Christmas wreath, a lantern. He looks lovely. He has dangly bits, sparkly bits.
And he's staring right at me, which is going to freak me out the entire time.
Yay, he is.
Okay.
Okay, up this week, we have 3 different segments. We have one, a lot of folks have been asking how we got into this. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Rowdy, what's your life story?
Let's do you first. That way I know how much time we got. Otherwise, I'll take up the entire time.
Do you want to just do it for me?
No. I'm going to fuck it up.
You're not supposed to say, we just got a lecture about swearing.
I know, but it's just so... Anyway, so... you go first.
Railroads. My mother did not take a lot of Tylenol in utero, as far as I know. So this wasn't a lifelong interest and obsession. I did have... there is a Venn diagram of people that are in this world. Titanic, World War II, trains. Mm-hmm. I had 2 of the 3, mm-hmm. and not the 3rd. So mm-hmm. I've collected the 3rd. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm a history nerd. I was working on an underwater archaeology degree in Mexico, and things weren't super safe there at the point that I was there. Let's cut out all the good bits of that story. So I moved home to upstate New York with my parents at the age of 21, 22. And I was planning on getting a PhD in nautical archaeology, but wanted to take a year off because all of the work I had done prior to that point was in the Yucatan. And I need a little bit of decompression time. So...
You picked trains.
I applied for a job that I wasn't going to have to think about. I wasn't going to be emotionally invested in. It was tangentially related to historic transportation assets, which was working as the office manager of the Adirondack Scenic Railroad, making $12 an hour. It was supposed to be a 30 to 40 hour a week job.
But wasn't?
No.
Mm-hmm.
So...
It seems to be a running thing in the railroad industry.
So I started out managing the office, and then that very quickly led to events and marketing. At the time, I was based out of Utica. There were stations in Thundera, which is close to Old Forge, and then there was a branch between Saranac Lake and Lake Placid. When I came in, the railroad did not have a general manager or executive director. It was managed by a 22-member board of directors, and it was largely volunteer run with a few paid employees. How do you think that went?
Knowing you, it didn't go worth a crap.
What do you mean, knowing me?
I'm sure you had problems with it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so...
And you opened your mouth, you probably did, and next thing you know, they're going, well, you just do it.
That is the long and short of it.
Yeah.
I was young. In many ways, I did not know what I didn't know. Partially, thank God. And I got to learn from a lot of salty old timers and a lot of really, really good people, too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Little column A, little column B, which I think is probably pretty similar to a lot of folks our age. Like some of the guys that still ran on the main line back in the day were around And that was a very different sort of critter than some of the other people. At Adirondack at the time, I did open my mouth one too many times, and I think it was a lot of the right place at the right time. There was a leadership vacuum. There was a lot of pressure in terms of the budget. The railroad was absolutely upside down financially, so I was definitely probably the cheapest help they could get. I was also probably young and dumb enough to, feel like I was invincible and want to take it on. So I think I was maybe 24 when I was promoted, became executive director of the railroad, worked on straightening out the budget, changing up some of the events, improving onboard customer service, that sort of thing. There was also an incredibly tense rail to trail battle. The Rail to Trail Conservancy had identified the segment, well, really the entirety of the railroad that they wanted to construct, the Adirondack Rail Trail. We ended up suing Governor Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's administration, in an arbitrary and capricious suit, the state of New York. It is hard to overemphasize how contentious it was. And I mean, that was my foray into the railroad world. I was very lucky to be in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately, there were a lot of sort of exacerbating and really challenging circumstances in terms of the budget, in terms of the rail to trail issues, in terms of operating on a state-owned railroad. Grant funding, state, federal funding, all of those things that go into this weird little world. I also got to learn from some really, really good people. Michelle Devendorf passed away a few years ago. She was a badass, an awesome mentor. She was like the vice president of Sears back in the 70s as a woman. Like absolute, just legend of a person. She was always the one that would say to me, like, Bethan, you need to make the decision that is going to ensure the railroad is around 20, 30, 40 years from now. The only way you can do the preservation that you want to is if you make the good business decision. Al Haywood was a history teacher. His lantern's tattooed on my arm. Some really, really wonderful mentors, some amazing volunteers. Lois, Diana, some really good staff that are still some of my best friends. In many ways, it was a really, really hard place to land, but I can't imagine doing what I do without that foundation. Right. In a lot of, I think, as you would say, learning how to run a railroad
the wrong way.
The wrong way.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best way, especially when you're young and dumb and overconfident and all of those things, and you don't know what you don't know, is to make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the only way you learn.
Yeah.
Screwing up multiple times, and then you fail more than you succeed in life.
Yeah. And I mean, I think if you look like at my resume, the trajectory of Adirondack looks good. We paid off our debt. We doubled ridership. We won a court battle. We restored a boatload of track, but there is still a section of the railroad that was ripped out. And I got to a point there that I was burnt out. I mean, you want to talk about death threats. I was sick of it. I was burnt out. Like trying to date in central New York, like is the railroad girl, and I wasn't ever going to date anyone in the industry. That was my entire identity. And it got to a point that wasn't healthy. And this is really sort of my second job ever. It's Mount Rainier. Whatever the millennial thing where you're supposed to change careers every year or two.
Something like that.
I don't know. We're not doing a good job of that.
And then you ended up here.
Yeah. Then I ended up here. I think we'll just fast forward through that bit. Then I ended up here.
Then you ended up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Met Tony. Had to stay.
Tony, had kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
Met Rowdy.
The first day we met, just so that everybody knows, the first day we met, I met the liberal from New York, and I was burning all the shop's trash
Well,
in the
so
70s
what
as
did
we
the-
were firing it up. For
Yeah, one of
Christmas.
the first things I said to you all was like, "Hey, I'm a vegetarian liberal from New York. Like, you'll learn to live with me."
Yeah,
and
that
then,
that was. I'm talking about when you came out the first
oh yeah,
time.
well, the Christmas cookies too.
And the Christmas cookies, when we melted them in the microwave.
Yeah, and you have never smelt something so bad as 3-month-old Christmas cookies that they've
nuked in the microwave.
nuked in the microwave. And
To see how long they would take
I
before
didn't
they
know
lit on
anything
fire.
about steam, so I was like, there is no way that it smelled that toxic should be coming from the shop. And then you all told me it was the Christmas cookies. And I was like, to hell with it. No, recreate that, because I don't believe that you didn't just commit some atrocious violation and that there isn't a dead body burning in that locomotive. And it was the Christmas cookie, but then the microwave started shooting flames.
No, it was the yellow smoke that came out of the microwave.
Oh.
They never got to the point of combustion.
Oh, yeah, but
It was
like,
just the yellow smoke.
you see people like bail out, like this is a terrible analogy, like the videos of Pearl Harbor where there's just sailors jumping off ships. That's what the break room was
That's
like.
what it looked like.
Anyway, how'd you get into this?
But they're going to look at me because we got, what, 3 minutes left on the
Yeah,
clock?
we're gonna go way
They're going to be
over.
like, oh, yeah, it should, okay, 15 minutes was enough to get through all this. Long story short, my uncle bought a piece of property in Elbe in the early 90s when I was just a kid. And we would come up and visit every summer in multiple points through the year. And there's not a point in my life where I do not remember watching the trains of Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad go by the end of my uncle's driveway across the 706 crossing right next to Horsey Jeff's. And so every year it was go for a train ride, skip over all that. I was absolutely obsessed to the point where I named my cat Blackie. I had a
Blackie was one of the
Blackie
guys
was
here.
one of the engineers here. I was absolutely obsessed. Blackie was my hero.
Which Martin, my son, now has a Lego dog named Rowdy.
Yeah. And to the point where I painted our Craftsman lawnmower black and put a big 5 on the front of it.
Yeah.
And so about 2000, my uncle had gone and done some work for the railroad with an excavator and was supposed to get a season pass, but we didn't know that the season passes didn't exist. And so I didn't get my train ride because my dad didn't want to pay money for the train ride if there was this season pass that was supposed to be around. So they left me behind with my uncles so that I could get my train ride. And it ended up being one of the conductors finally just said, well, we'll let you ride a couple of times. And 3 weeks later of riding the train every day, 3 times a day, every day, because back then they ran it 7 days a week, they finally said, well, we can't just let you go for free train rides all the time. And so Tim Daubert and Scott Gordon and them kind of took me under their wings, and I got to oil the locomotive.
No, they said that you had to fill a coffee
Okay,
can.
I'm jumping over the cigarette part of it because we now got 1 minute and 6 seconds left.
Rowdy had to fill a coffee can with cigarette butts.
And
then
wiped-
this guy went around the entire town of Elbe and filled
cleaned it
them.
up.
So he had his fare for the week with like 5 coffee
It was
cans
fair for
full.
the day. 'Cause
Whatever.
they didn't think I was going to be able to fill a coffee can every day. And I had the coffee can filled by the time that they got the engine ready to go for the day. And so what happened was I walked up to the engine with an empty coffee can and said, I can't find any more cigarette butts. And they understood that I had wiped LB out at that point. That there was not a cigarette butt one laying on the ground. And I was actually to the point of desperation that I was getting ready to start taking cigarettes out of people's mouths. And so they said, okay, well, here you go. Here's an oil can. We'll teach you how to oil the locomotive. And that was that. And so then every year, it was the day that school got out, the next day I was at Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad doing something, God only knows what. And so, I mean, hung out with Scott Wickert, Blackie Mosier, Randy Marquis, Jack Anderson. I've known all the CMOs between here and there. And like you said, when people sit back and go, well, how where'd you learn? I just tell everybody, Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is where I learned how not to run a railroad, as well as how not to work on a steam locomotive. Because, I mean, we were having a conversation last night in the driveway with boys about cowboy railroading, and it was the dictionary definition of fly barely above the rules. I mean, Brian had all the letters from the FRA as masking up in the windows of the 901 when he was painting it that were all the threats of shutting the place down. It was all in that same time period. So it just, I took a lot from the good people that were here, and I also took a lot from the bad people that were here, and that was, what to steer away from. And then 26 years later, here we are.
I don't think there's anything at this railroad you haven't done.
No.
I mean, onboard performance, conductor, working concessions, gift shop.
Gift shop. I've done. We rebuilt the Willamette, helped rebuild the 91, helped rebuild the 10, doing the 5 now. Started with helping with on the 70, done coach work, went out into the world and did other stuff. But yeah, it's basically track work, all of it.
There's a lot to be said. I think the moral of the story with both of us is there's a lot to be said with really unhealthy work-life boundaries and hyperfixation.
Yeah. I mean,
whiskey.
And whiskey, and when you're young too, you don't know how to balance that.
I mean, for me now, like even, it's one thing to be, have a partner. It's another to have 3 kids at home.
Yep.
And have to stop and balance it.
Yep.
Like, I'll let y'all know when I figure it out.
Especially when it's a demon like this, that it takes every ounce of your time and energy and well-being to be able to make it work.
Broccoli, Ratty. All you need to do is eat broccoli. You'll be fine.
Okay.
This week in the news, Off the Rails with Rowdy and Bethan's newest segment, the Surface Transportation Board issues a definitive ruling that the Mendocino Railway is a Class 3 rail carrier subject to exclusive federal jurisdiction. Can you explain what that means for those sitting at home?
Well, for one, the Mendocino Railway is the skunk train.
Yes.
California Western. So what that means is that there's been some mud in the water down there about that. The folks around that area seem to think that it is a tourist railroad, and as a tourist railroad, it shouldn't fall under the federal preemption rules.
What is common carrier status?
You move stuff.
Beep, beep.
You move stuff.
You move stuff.
You move stuff.
That common carrier status, let's just fast forward, gives you federal preemption. Can you quickly explain federal preemption?
Federal preemption basically means that you report to the federal government and the federal government only, which means you do not fall under town's jurisdiction, you don't fall under county jurisdictions, and you don't fall under state jurisdictions, which means you don't have to follow town rules, county rules, or state rules.
Yeah, your common carrier status basically means you're engaged in interstate commerce. Now, federal preemption is protective for railroads and the common good as a whole, right? So that a lot of people don't like trains running in their backyard.
Yep.
So a county, a local municipality might be moved to make moves to block that movement.
City of Auburn, 1996, where all this started.
But
Auburn versus BNSF.
if we're going to move goods across the country, railways are important.
Yep.
So this is a protective measure that ensures that railroads are viable, right? That you're not having to jump through
Too many hoops.
Yep. Because with that, it would be impossible to run and manage a railroad.
Oh, it would. Just look at for example, East Creek Junction. When we started building that, and we would have had to go through all the permitting for that. It still wouldn't be built.
But even things like, having to do emergency repairs on your railroad if there's flooding, something like that. Now, there are rules and regulations that we have to comply with, but if you had to do an emergency repair, like on BNSF's main line, for example, they could be shut down for weeks or months waiting for permitting process to happen, which would have a ripple effect of millions and millions and millions of dollars of goods being stuck or stranded or rerouted.
If anybody really wants to sit down and look at what the judgment is, you look up the City of Auburn versus BNSF lawsuit that happened in 1996.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read.
It's kind of the definitive, this is how the railroad's federal preemption works.
Now, your common carrier status, we're going to get into this in the next segment. Your common carrier status doesn't necessarily transfer with the sale of your railroad. That's a separate filing with the Surface Transportation Board. But we are very pleased for the folks at Mendocino that they've had this affirmation that they are, in fact, a common carrier, that they have that residual common carrier obligation is theirs, that there are protections. The American Shortline Regional Railroad Association, the ASLRA, which we always talk about, was strongly supportive that an adverse ruling that they weren't a common carrier would have seriously jeopardized their operation. And they've been very, very good and adept at using federal loan programs, federal funding to rebuild sections of the railroad. There's still a lot of railroad that's out of service, and I anticipate that they will probably keep using some of those programs to keep restoring
keep them
track.
open to things like Chrissy grants and that kind of thing.
Exactly. So very pleased for those folks. Congratulations.
Yay.
Yay. We've had, with the Q&A section, we've had a lot of comments that are sort of advice column-y, a little bit of like, Dear Abby, will you tell me what to do with this caboose I found abandoned in a park? And we can't do that for the Q&A. Like, keep sending them. There's some that could be really, really fun to look at. But for this segment, what we're going to do is we're going to look at Jim Wren's 10 rules, and we're going to talk about them as it pertains to Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad. So who was Jim Wren, Rowdy?
Jim Wren was the editor-in-chief of Trains Magazine.
Trains Magazine. And
Big in the preservation community. A really, really nice guy. I only ever met him once for a few minutes, and that was it. So I can't really speak too terribly much about Jim. But he was a powerhouse in the industry.
we had a managers meeting before this, and we asked Eric Menzies to describe Jim Wren, and he was effusive in saying he was the nicest, most thoughtful, the kindest person in the railroad industry you would ever meet, and that he was unequivocally supportive.
Yep.
If people wanted to do something in this industry, he was the first in sort of to encourage them, be the best cheerleader. And I think that he was a fairly studied person, and he probably got a lot of questions. What do I do with this? And he put together an article for Trains Magazine a while back, and he wrote 10 rules for railroad preservation, which have become fairly, they've become the 10 Commandments, essentially. So what we thought we would do is we would go over them. So the first one, as written, control your house. If you don't own your site, station tracks, etc., you're in danger.
100%. That's, how many different railroads could we name right now that are facing a trails
Adirondack
situation?
Scenic Railroad was owned by the state of New York.
Yep.
And
you look at what's going on with Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad, too.
Yep.
They don't own the railroad. They don't own their land. At any moment, no matter how good you think your relationship with somebody could be, at any moment you could have the carpet yanked right out.
What's the service life of a railroad tie?
40 years.
40 years. So if you,
40 years.
even if you have a 50-year lease, for example, which is seen as sort of a lifetime lease, you're only making investments that are as good as one, if even one life cycle of your lease.
Yep.
And that's a really, with the investment you have to make in these things to make them successful, viable, not owning or having a, unbreakable covenant with your track is absolutely critical.
We got extremely lucky that Tacoma Rail gave us the buyout option on our railroad.
So we had a 40-year lease.
Yeah.
And I first approached Tacoma Rail in 2017 about exercising that buyout option. Maybe it was 2018?
It was 2018.
2018, about exercising the buyout option in that lease. And we were only able to buy the railroad this year.
Yeah.
Because railroads are such a complicated thing.
Yeah.
There was federal money and tiebacks, so we had to go through this whole process, even though it was clearly written.
The other thing is even though you have a lease, somewhere inside that lease is fine print that says that the lease can be discontinued default, whatever. That lease can be taken from you at any moment, any time, for any reason, 90% of the time. So just because you have a 90-year lease on something doesn't mean that you are going to have it for that 90 years. Because if somebody comes in and makes a case that says, hey, I could do better with that than you could, guess what? they're going to pull it away from you and they're going to give it to somebody different.
And so many issues we see in the railroad preservation world are related to ownership of the assets. And it's not just owning your railroad.
No.
We see all of these preservation projects come up. Well, we're fundraising for X, Y, and Z. And one of the first questions that people always ask, Nick Ozerak is sort of famous for it at this point, is, on Facebook, someone launches a fundraiser. Who owns it?
Yep.
Who owns it?
Well, I mean, look at our neighboring railroad. They have a steam engine. Who owns the steam engine?
Yeah, the city does.
Yep.
So that's, I think, controlling your house, whether it's your assets, your station, your track,
All of
your
it.
trolley,
Whatever it might
whatever
be.
it is.
If you don't own it, be prepared for it to go away at some point in time.
Yep. And you have to prepare for that eventuality. And then I would also say with control your house, what we just talked about in the new segment, federal preemption, common carrier status. How many other protections can you invoke so that this thing can't be wrestled away?
Yeah, you gotta protect. You gotta be on top of the game. I mean, it's one of them things that just because, to kind of try to add to that, just because you signed a lease 20 years ago, you should be looking at things going, lots changed in 20 years. Maybe I might want to go back to the owners and negotiate, hey, can we buy this? And we can't buy this. Well, in some cases, well, what's your, common carrier obligation?
Yeah.
Can we duck in underneath that? Because the more barriers you put between you and whatever's coming at you, the better off you are.
I mean, one of the biggest things that we will probably face at some point, we don't own our parking lot in LB.
We don't.
And that was a decision that was made 40 years ago. We've tried
Just going and buying it is not an option.
and we've tried to buy it, but not having something as silly as a parking lot is a limiting factor on your operation.
Yep.
Can be really challenging. The second rule: keep your relations with Class 1 railroad partners healthy. You may need a friend there one day.
Oh, look at what we're going through with the Carolina cars. I mean, that's a perfect example.
That's actually one of the Q&As. What's going on with the cars in North Carolina? We've gone through. I mean, trying to get through NS right now is so dang hard.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if they were in BNSF territory, we probably would have had it handled by now.
Because we have healthier relationships.
Because we have a really
there.
healthy relationship with BNSF. But because we're going through NS/UP, it's a little bit more challenging.
We're strangers in some ways.
Yeah.
And the long and short with the Carolina cars there is we had securement diagrams for how we were going to load them and send them.
They are
across
ready
the
to be
system.
shipped.
They're ready to be shipped.
But there are no 89-foot passenger cars.
Yeah, so we've
flat
actually,
cars.
I didn't update us in the manager meeting. We've changed it. So we are going to send them as a double stack load right now because those cars are available. We've submitted those securement diagrams, and poor Lane at North Carolina Transportation just wants those things out of there because they have like Halloween Thomas, Polar, like all of their events stacked up and they need the space.
They could always use them.
If they want to do work. I think they want us to do that work.
I think they want us to
Keep
do that work.
relationships with your Class 1 railroad partners healthy. I think there's so many examples we could cite to, moving the 611 on the East Coast.
But I think that I'll keep your relations with railroad partners happy. Because in our situation, we're butted up against a Class 3 short line.
Yeah.
So I think I would add to number 2 because, this was written back in 2018. I think I would add to number 2, just keep your relations with the real railroads happy.
With the railroad community in general.
Yeah.
I mean, man, even in the little niche industry we're in, you need parts for something obsolete.
Yep.
If
you have an Alco locomotive, that is for sure.
Right? That's critical. Number 3, know your local community. This includes government, chamber of commerce, visitors, bureaus, other organizations.
That might be a help or hindrance.
But you have to know the other thing I'm going to add to that. Know your local community because for example, we've got a good relationship with Pierce County. We get marketing dollars from Pierce County. That's hugely beneficial. But you also need to know your audience.
Yeah.
You need to know what your local community cares about. You need to know what their concerns are. And you can't just duck your head in the sand.
Okay, to add to that part of it, You have a 32-mile long railroad. What's our biggest thing? We run through 1, 2, 3, 4 towns and 2 counties. So you got to know the difference in the communities going on.
And that takes a lot of work. Like,
Oh, it
I
does.
mean, every Rotary, every Lions Club, every, all of those meetings we're invited to, we go to.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time, but it's really, really, really important.
And pretty soon, before you know it, people are stopping in the street and they want to talk about things.
Yep.
And there you go. There you have it.
Make sure your local community knows you, what you
Yep.
stand for, the good you do, the impact you
Make
make.
sure they have a very clear understanding of what your mission and what you're trying to do is.
Yeah. I mean,
Because if they don't know what you're trying to do, then they can be a problem in themselves.
yeah, but also goes back to knowing your audience. Your audience should also know you, right? Is knowing who your faces are, what you're doing, making sure, you're, in some ways, if you work for the railroad in your local community, you're always on, right?
That's why neither one of us would ever buy a house that's near the railroad.
Because I want to be able to go out to dinner with my kids
Exactly.
without,
Exactly.
unfortunately, but,
And unfortunately for us, with Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad becoming what it is, I was at dinner the other day down in Chehalis, and somebody recognized the logo on the hat and was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
do you work for the railroad, or did you ride it?" And it's like, "Oh."
I mean, your local community, I mean, those are some of our best assets. Like I will sing the praises of the Mineral Lake Lions Club all day because they've been, hugely kind to us in the aftermath of the bridge and the trestle fire. But also, like knowing who's working for you, what they're doing, that, hey, we've got a bunch of high school kids, they're learning trades. That stuff resonates with the local community. Incredibly important. Network within the preservation community. In person
this is
at
number 5 we're talking about.
Yep, number 5, in person at the Heritage Rail Alliance. Things like that. I would also argue we've had a huge amount of impact and benefit from the Short Line Association.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, I think that's one of those, you got to know yourself what you're doing there too, because I mean, some of these organizations are going to go to something like the Short Line. So who would be a good example? You wouldn't want someone from just a museum, like, say, I'm going to pick on Carson City. It just goes around in a loop. You're not someone like that's not going to have any benefit from like the Short Line Conference. But if you were a bigger, longer railroad like Mendocino, which Mr. Pinoli was there.
Yep.
If you're someone, I mean, our friends from Durango and Silverton were there. If you got more than 3 miles of railroad, you could really benefit from stuff like the ASLRA.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. The other thing with that is the number of times that you and I pick up the phone and just call someone, even if it's across the country, and go, I got a stupid question for you. I mean, Alan Maples has probably saved this railroad tens of thousands of dollars by answering my stupid questions.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same. I'll call Matt Cunningham or Charlie Cross or even now I feel like I could call Brendan Zegler if I needed to and say, hey, I have a really silly question, but I want to make sure it's answered before I continue with something. And that's the important
with
thing.
That networking, answer questions when you are asked. Get rid of the ego. Don't be afraid to ask dumb questions because we all do it. Mine are probably a lot dumber than most. But there's a huge amount of value in learning from other people's mistakes, right? Learning from what they've done well. Dave Manning at the Nog said, hey, when you guys get ready to start hauling freight, you can come out here for a week and just follow me around because, man, it was painful trying to learn, the way billing and all of those systems. He's like, save yourself the time and trouble, come on out. And like, how kind and generous is that? That's awesome. 6, manage your collection and balance between ambitious and realistic. I'm going to let you talk about that.
This railroad is the perfect example of why you need to learn the word no. If someone says, well, I have this blah, blah, blah.
In the arms of an angel.
It is perfectly okay for it to go off to the happy hunting ground of the railroad than it is to say, well, I'm going to get a hold of that just so I can say, I mean, how many pieces of equipment do we have here that we can't do anything with.
And but that's a tedious process too. Richard Anderson,
Yeah.
I give a huge amount of kudos to, because they have this beautiful collection policy that they shared with us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is what we need to do in order to accept a donation.
Yep.
This is what we need to do in order
Yep.
to deaccession something, you know,
Yep.
to get rid of it responsibly. Let's find another use for it.
Yep.
Let's, you know, what are our options?
Yep.
But you need to know realistically what you have the time and the resources to manage.
And it's not so much realistically what you have the time and the resources to manage in the here and the now. It's in the future.
How does it, fit in
Because
the next...
I got 40 log cars here on this railroad.
Do we really?
Yes.
Not that many.
No, there's a bunch of stuff down at Park Junction. Yeah.
See, this is the thing. I have been here now for 5, 6, 8 years. And it's like surprises like this, where I'm like, what do you mean we have 40?
We have 4 steam locomotive tenders. We have 2 tank cars that are full of some kind of mystery fluid. We don't know exactly what it is. We have another tank car that's empty that I really like to turn into a fuel storage. We have an American crane that don't run and has been cannibalized on top of the Clyde.
So once every 6 months, I say to Rowdy, come take a walk with me.
Uh-huh.
And
we look at the artifacts.
And I go around and I point to things and I go, what's this?
Well, that's
and
an
he
artifact.
gives me the story behind it. And then at the end of those 2 hours of walking around, when I start losing my mind, that's when he usually starts saying, someone needs to feed her.
Uh-huh.
And
but it's so,
you know,
if you're trying to take something on now, look at that and say, okay, is that going to have any kind of relevance in the next 15 years? Mm-hmm. And how many of these organizations got steam locomotives stacked up for a mile? And they're all just sitting out there, rusting away, doing nothing, turning it. I mean, by the time the organization may or may not be able to save them, they're roached to the point where you can't save them.
Yeah. Knowing that, what is within your capability?
What is preservation? What is actually preserving something versus just pushing the end a little bit farther down the road?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough one.
It's a very tough. I mean, look at the back and forth that we had scrapping those 4 Canadian cars.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to give them away.
Yep.
And we tried to give them away for years.
And then when the guy finally knocked on the door and said, "I'll give you $1,500 a piece for them," and money's better than giving them away. They were at the point where there was no way you were going to be able to save them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they just tumbled. Number 7, you and your museum live in the real world. You are not immune to egos, human foibles, and misunderstandings.
Yeah.
The hardest part about, I think, management is people.
100%. I mean, look at what we've been going through for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, well, you and I get into it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Everybody gets into it.
You know? I mean, your board, knowing why your board is there, what their interest is. Mm-hmm. You know, knowing what makes your people tick, right? Like I joke with the guys here and I'm like, hey, like at least treat yourself as well as you would treat like a guinea pig. Mm-hmm. Like you need sunlight, you need water, you need food, like, or a house plant.
Well, what was the conversation we had last week, sometime during the week, when we were talking about, bringing other people on. And the first thing I said was, I want to make sure whoever we bring on is coming on to help us with our mission, that they want to be here for our mission. And it's not that they just want to be here to work for Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad, because Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is popular right now, and they just want another notch on their head post. Yeah.
Cool. 8, have a plan. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. What letter plan do you think we are on right now?
A few. My grandfather, this is actually a perfect thing. My grandfather had a saying, and it was, plans are subject to change depending upon the part of the plan not planned upon.
Yeah. I think that one of the reasons that we have been able to do what we have done in a short amount of time is because we've been really agile. We've been able to pivot and pivot hard and pivot quickly. Now, that is also going to be our downfall.
It's going to be our downfall. And man,
it's because we take on too much. And we're trying to
You could
pull
actually
back from
praise
that.
the board a little bit in that, because the board gives us the ability to pivot when we need to pivot. And we don't spend months stuck in trying to say we need to pivot because of this. And then by the time we pivot, it's too late.
I mean, if we had a marketing committee, for example, that was looking at how
God.
we're doing our marketing, the way the algorithms change, the way things go, if we had a lengthy approval process there, our marketing wouldn't work.
Yep.
Same with, however
Yep.
you want to apply that.
I mean,
9,
9, never forget that even though you are a nonprofit, you are still a business. Job number 1 is staying in business. This is something that was actually covered at the HRA.
well, this is something that goes back to what I said in that first segment. Michelle Devendorf with Adirondack Railway Preservation Society always said, your job is to make sure that you are making the business decision that ensures the railroad is here in another 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, and it's, one of the things that plagued Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad for a long time was that it's a nonprofit, so it can't make a profit. It's a nonprofit. It has to have zero in the bank at the end of every year. Well, you can't do that.
Niles Canyon is a great example because they have an endowment.
Yep.
Right? They have money in the bank. That allows them to weather storms.
Yep.
It allows them to do
stuff.
some really quality preservation work.
They have
Right.
the ability. I mean, well, just look at the engine that Howard's been working on. They have the ability to do that. They have the ability to do good coach work. They have the ability to go after doing good steam locomotive work.
Your nonprofit status is a tax status, not a goal and not a method of doing business.
You're running a nonprofit. That means you're not running a nonprofit on purpose.
All that is a tax status.
It means you don't pay taxes and that your board doesn't get paid.
You're no dividends, right?
Exactly. There's no owners. It's
They're
it's there.
reinvesting it in the company.
So that means you need to be thinking in a way that says, hey, I am a business. I need to generate a profit because the only way that businesses can stay afloat is if they're generating a profit.
Amen. 10, always remember you were there for the visitors.
This is something I get up on my fence, on my soapbox and kind of pound on pretty hard sometimes, is because what is the first thing before we do anything? What is the first thing we ask ourselves?
What's the experience?
What is the experience? And then we build the operation around that.
Yeah. And that is everything from you are having a bad day, right? But you're on the train crew and you are the conductor.
Yep.
You need to realize that even though you're having a bad day, you put that uniform on, you are some 2, 3, 4-year-old's hero.
Yep. Yep.
Right. It's the simple things. It's making sure you have a smile and you're greeting people and you're not annoyed by answering questions of, does this run on coal? Right. Even though that seems obvious to you.
If you really want to, if you want to be snarky with them, you say something like, "No, it's nuclear fusion," and then they laugh, and you're like, "Ha ha ha! I was just a dick to you, but I feel better."
But it's got to be, it has to be
right
with a smile.
Nothing ticks me off more than when I go down to watch the train in town, and I see a 2 or 3-year-old kid waving at the engineer, and the engineer just has this sour look on his face because he's ticked off that he has to run the engine that day. I mean, for one, if you're running the 70, you should not be ticked off that you're one of the few people in the country running a steam locomotive, because there is somebody else out there that wants to do that for you. It's all part of their experience. It's not your experience.
And people don't have to drive hours to get here. They don't have to pay us money to do this. They're doing this because they want to.
Yep.
We better appreciate
what is it
hell
that we
out of
always
that.
talk about? Tourism is an elective spend. They have elected to spend their hard-earned money to help keep you in business.
Yeah.
Their experience starts the second they turn off the road and down your driveway.
Yeah.
And if they're not having a good time from the second that they turn off the road and down the driveway, then they're not going to be back.
Now, I'm going to tell a story, and then we're going to end this segment. But once upon a time, there was a superintendent of the railroad that briefly got stuck on parking lot duty. And our parking lot is a little bit of
I know this
a
story.
death trap, because, you have a crossing and a sidewalk and your parking lot all at the same time. So we always have someone that greets the cars as soon as they pull in that driveway. So our superintendent, who I'm not going to name names, was temporarily on parking lot duty, and people would roll down their window and he would say, Are you here for the submarine tour or the train ride? Are you here for the seaplane tour? The number of people that laughed, like most people loved it. Mm-hmm. There was a small percentage of people that went to the station asking for details on the submarine tours of Alder Lake.
Or the evening showing of Pirates of Penzance, which happened to be playing at the Roxy that night.
Anyway,
the ticketing
customer
staff
service
wanted to kill
training
that
is
superintendent
very
by the end of the day.
important.
Yeah, the ticketing staff really wanted to kill that superintendent by the end of the day.
You are there for your visitors. You are not there to play with trains and make yourself feel good about yourself.
And that's the thing is some of these folks could really care what is pulling the train. If they want to go for a steam train ride and they're being pulled by a steam train, cool. But they don't care if it's the big boy. They don't care if it's the 70. They don't care if it's a Heisler. As long as there's a steam whistle and it goes chug, that's what they want. It's really easy to get lost in that.
Yeah. And, big shout out to our staff because I think that, we've got a hell of a staff that they want to be here. They do quality work. They are safety minded. They are conscious. But I think our staff really does an exemplary job of being welcoming, and really treating the customers like their family. And it says a lot when you want to be here, you feel good about what you're doing, that translates to your customers. So shout out to our staff. Y'all are rock stars.
Yeah. I have been told that I am leading the question and answers part of this. So question number 1 on my notes here is younger volunteers, diversity with volunteers, and how/where to get them and keep them with a period, which I'm assuming should have been a question mark.
There were notes. It wasn't a dissertation. It was notes.
That's actually a really, really good question. Younger volunteers. I will swing positive this direction. I started when I was
8.
No,
7?
I was 88, so I was 11 years
2?
old, 12. So I was welcomed in, and it was really kind of a interesting thing because they're all going, he's a kid, but he's showing interest. So they kind of took the direction of, because people like Blackie and a lot of them had started when they were real young. Mm-hmm. They took let's just feed the passion.
Yeah, I mean, you had a unique critters, a Blackie Mosier type.
I had very unique critters that were just like, hey, this is just a kid that loves trains. Let's just take him along for the ride. Some places don't have that, and some places you look at them and their volunteer pool are older, and they're not too terribly welcoming because it kind of looks like to me from the outside it's one of those they're there for their experience, not everybody else's experiences. And the thing with younger volunteers that I always kind of look at is that if you're going to have younger volunteers, you got to have an open mind with them because they are going to have different ideas that are probably stemmed from being in the here and the now of this reality versus we're going to run off of a 1949 Northern Pacific rule book.
Yeah.
The diversity with the volunteers also needs to be a woman can do it just as good as a man can do it.
Stop trying, right?
Stop trying.
So we know that we have manual high rail gear.
Yep.
Right? We know that...
You can't put it down worth of crap.
No. I don't weigh enough. There are videos of all of my weight, being on that high rail gear.
You were even pregnant when you were trying to do that.
And I can't do it. Yep. But what would make me feel awkward is if everyone wasn't there laughing with me, right? Stop trying, right?
Yeah.
I think as a woman in this industry, it gets awkward when everyone stops telling jokes if I walk in the room, right? I can take the joke.
One of the first times you were around, we were listening to Wheeler Walker Jr. at lunch, and it was the song Redneck Crap, and there's a certain part about things with cousins in the Walmart parking lot, and Bethan walked right through the door about then, and everybody in the break room, fell over trying to get the phone to stop playing the song, and that's Wheeler Walker Jr. But
right, be yourself, right? Don't be an ass.
Yep.
And just treat everyone like they want to be here, right? If they want to be there, welcome them in.
And you know, and the other thing is too, I would sometimes, one of the things I've found with dealing with the older generations is take what they say with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I know at one point in time I heard somebody that was a girl that freaked out about, well, this certain so says that this is no place for a woman and blah 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 blah. And I went and talked to the individual that said it. I said, man, why did you say that? He goes, well, it's not any place for a woman. It's dirty. It's grimy. It's no better a place for a woman than a strip club is for a child.
Yeah.
So look at the context what's it's being said in too.
Yeah, and you know, to a degree, like I had to do a lot of advocating for myself. That was 15 years ago. The world has changed, but don't be so precious about it.
Our problem with volunteers is that we've hired all the good ones.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is figure out what people are good at and let them do that.
You know, I'm actually amazed Arbutus hasn't been around this summer.
The other thing I will say is, this is going to be maybe a controversial answer. You can fire volunteers.
Yeah.
If we had a volunteer that came in that started talking really ill in the first 10 minutes about another railroad, and we immediately dismissed them.
Yep.
Because if they're going to talk negatively about another railroad, they're probably going to speak negatively about us. And by the way, we have a fair number of friends there.
Yep.
You can have an intellectual conversation and debate how someone's doing things, but let's not lead with that.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. He didn't make it. It was 5 minutes because he walked through the door, and I'm tired of those. And I just said, get out.
You know, if you're not gonna treat people with respect, you don't need that person there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing is, you know, maintain your culture.
I think that's one thing that you not so much keep them. Identify the bad ones and get them gone, because there's nothing that's going to make the good ones leave quicker than the bad ones.
Cut the cancer out.
Cut the cancer out and get rid of it. That's one of the if you want to keep good volunteers, you have to identify who the bad ones are and just go to them and say, look, you're bringing everything else down. You need to leave.
Yeah.
Do you sell concessions on board? What about stains and taking care of your interiors? We do sell concessions on board.
What's your cost of doing business?
It's
there are mitigating things you can do with Christmas trains. For example, one of the best things we did was get those silly little stickers instead of the like straws you put in the lids, like the silly little stickers, right, that prevent spills.
And what do you do about stains and taking care? I mean, the parlor car right now is the perfect example because how much vinaigrette stains are in the carpet, and we're not going to be able to get that out. So this is, I think that this could go back to when you talk about restorations. How much money did we spend on the inside of the parlor car?
20 grand.
It was like $20,000 or $30,000, and people are going to fall out of their chairs and go, "Oh, you only spent that little? It's a cheap. That's so cheap."
That's with all the restaurant equipment in it.
But we are kind of sitting back going, okay, well, if we need to redo the inside of it, it's another $20,000 or $30,000. It looks nice. It accomplishes the look. It accomplishes the goal. But it's also one of them things of, oh, well, if we need to gut the car and redo this, because we know if you're going to have kids on board, they're going to destroy it. We know that if you got drunk people on board, they're going to spill stuff. We know that, the environment to which our cars are subjected to, we don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars restoring them. We spend a little bit of money, which makes it easier to sit back and say, okay, well, we got to redo the part.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, for example, with the chairs, I bought extras because I assumed they were going to get trashed. So I did the math. I bought more cheaper chairs. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a lot to be said for having the really nice wipeable leather seats too, rather than upholstery. So sometimes you factor that into the cost of doing business and what your experience is.
And that's the thing. Is this the cost of doing business? I mean, you cannot put a car steam engines, for example, they start to fall apart the second you put a fire in them.
Yeah, we already answered that one earlier.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so to answer that question, yes, we sell concessions on board, and we just factor the upkeep of the interior of the car into the cost of doing business, and we know that every 3 to 5 years we're redoing the inside of a passenger car.
So be it.
So be it. What do you?
Oh God.
What do your significant others think of the railroad? Oh, she absolutely freaking hates it. It's an on again, off again relationship. Well, so you got it. Tony's got it better than me because
Yeah.
we live here. So if people that don't know, myself and my significant other Randy actually live in one of the log camp buildings here on site. It was supposed to be a temporary thing, and then the housing market went to crap. We haven't been able to sell the house back in Eastern Washington, and so we're stuck in a log camp building. So for anybody that wants to know what it's like to live in one of these buildings, it sucks.
Yeah.
So Randy's one of them hot and cold on it. Some days she thinks it's really cool and it's awesome, but here more often than not, she doesn't like it because what happens on the weekends? Well, the 70 is being fired up right on the other side of the wall.
It's a lifestyle.
It is.
It's a lifestyle. My husband was in the military for 22 years. He flew for the Navy. And sort of thank God, because he was used to being gone a lot, right? So he's used to one of us being away.
Yeah, but here's the important part, is that they're supportive.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. And there's lots of young folks coming into this. We can kind of segue into an off-topic thing here. We've got 3 minutes, and I think I can do it. We are dealing with this with some of our staff, where they're single, but they want to have a family. They want to have a significant other. And when you're in your early 20s, it can be really hard to balance those two things. Eric said it best in a conversation which was had on Sunday, and that is find somebody that is supportive of what you're doing in your dream and doesn't find it competition.
Exactly. Because Tony knows that I love him. He knows I love the railroad. Mm-hmm. And I went through a really dark place a few months ago, and I was like, can I really do this with the kids and all of that? And he sort of said, like, well, babe, you're going to do whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. He's like, but I know you. Mm-hmm. And you have unfinished business there, and you're not going to be happy working for a paycheck just to work for a paycheck. And it's a lot of, hey, if you got to go do that, go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And we're
it's a
different
lifestyle.
We're different because we're management.
Yeah.
If you're one of the grunts at one of these places and you're actually only working 8 to 10 hours a day and you're a volunteer and you're giving up every other weekend to go do it, and your significant other's going, well, I have to share you with that. You need to sit down and do some staring at the tea leaves. But
to be clear, I could not do this if my husband wasn't a rock star and home with the kids.
Exactly. No, none. In your situation, definitely. And to a certain extent, myself as well. Because I got somebody that sits back and goes, hey, this is your dream, and I really don't want to get in the middle of that. But can you just at least make sure I have some time and can go do my things? Yeah. So that's...
part of that's life.
It's life.
Figuring it out.
And the thing of it is that for the both of us, a lot of folks don't realize that this is a startup. Yeah. It's not Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad, which has been rocking and rolling for 40 years. It's a brand new startup business that's only 3 years old. Anybody that's ever started a business knows you are married to the business for at least 5 to 10 years before the business can sustain itself. And it's not like we have donors that we could sit back and, oh, well, we didn't get to
We'd love some.
We would love some. But so we
shout
are
out to Tony and Randy.
Business. Yeah, it's been
Tony and Randy helped make the choo choo go chugga chugga too.
And for here, and then shout out to the significant others of other people all over the industry that have to share their significant other with the railroad, because it's really, 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 really hard to have to sit back and say, well, I want to go play trains this weekend, but I can't because I'm afraid of what my girlfriend or my wife or my husband or whatever it might be would have to say about it.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
How much are sponsorships?
We are really pricey right now. We are a whopping $50 an episode.
Yeah.
We're getting about 3,000 to 4,000. We're trending upwards towards 4,000 hits an episode. So if you would like to sponsor Off the Rails with Rowdy and Bethan, we will take your $50 and give you a really nice plug. Thanks for listening. Join us next week.
There's a lot of silence after that because there's no sponsors.
I got nothing. We have Tom with his tinsel.